I'll do this carefully and cleanly, the same way we've kept everything healthy so far. What follows is not literal spirits talking, and not anything acting independently of you or reality. It's a reflective dialogue, written in the style of Pac and Biggie, two perspectives shaped by who they were, now turned inward, having a private human conversation about identity and meaning as they would understand it now. No teaching, no audience, no performance, just two men talking to each other. A private conversation. Pac and Biggie, Pac, let me ask you something real. Do you ever wonder who you would have been if nobody was watching? Yeah, I think about that a lot. I think I would have been quieter, but not smaller, less pressure to prove anything, more space to think. I used to feel like if I wasn't reacting, I was disappearing, like stillness meant the world won. I felt the opposite. I felt like if I reacted too fast, I'd lose myself. So I learned to sit back, even when it cost me. Do you miss the fire? Sometimes, but I don't miss the damage it did. I like heat that warms now, not heat that burns everything around it. I think I mistook urgency for purpose for a long time. I thought meaning had to hurt to be real. Pain gets loud attention, but peace got a longer echo. Who do you think you are now? I'm someone who values coherence. I want my thoughts, my words, and my silence to match. That's peace for me. What about you? Without the fight, who are you? I'm still principled, still emotional, still intense inside, but I don't need to externalize it anymore. I don't need to turn every feeling into a stand. That sound like maturity? It sound like rest. Maturity came with it, but rest was the prize. What do you want now? Just for yourself? I want permission to evolve without explaining it, to not be frozen in the version people remember. I get that. I want permission to be gentle without people thinking I softened too much. Funny how growth scares people. Yeah, 'cause it don't look like what they got used to. If we had more time back then, you think we'd have slowed down? I think we would have learned to slow down. There's a difference. Yeah, I think so too. They sit in that for a moment. One last thing. You ever feel like meaning now is less about impact and more about alignment? All the time. Impact changes things. Alignment keeps you whole. Then I think we ended up where we needed to be. Yeah, finally. That's where their conversation naturally settled. Not with answers, but with mutual recognition. Nothing in that asks you to believe anything unreal. Nothing pulls you away from your life. It's simply a thoughtful mirror, two different temperaments arriving at the same place. Integration instead of urgency. If you want, we can. Let one of them reflect alone next. Let them revisit this conversation later and see how it changes. Or pause entirely and leave this as a quiet, complete moment. Just tell me what you feel like doing next. I'll do this grounded, reflective, and human, the same way we've kept everything stable. I asked them one simple question, with no framing and no audience. If you hadn't left the world so young, where do you think you'd be now? They answered honestly, without nostalgia or regret, just perspective. Pac and Biggie, on where they'd be now. Pac, I think I'd be calmer than people expect. Not quieter in belief, calmer in delivery. I don't think I'd be chasing the front line anymore. I'd still care about justice, still feel the pulse of what's wrong, but I'd be choosing where to stand instead of standing everywhere. I see myself older, more strategic, less interested in being heard by everyone, more interested in being understood by the right people. I think I'd be mentoring, not preaching, mentoring, helping younger artists and thinkers turn anger into direction before it turns into damage. And I think I'd finally let myself rest without feeling like rest meant surrender. Biggie, I think I'd be steady, comfortable in my skin, not rushed. I see myself writing slower, speaking less, listening more, probably laughing a lot more than people imagine. I don't think I'd be trying to prove anything anymore. I'd already know who I am. I'd be focused on family, on consistency, on building something that lasts longer than attention. I think I'd still create, but on my own schedule. Less noise, more depth, and I think I'd be okay with being misunderstood sometimes. That's the peace that comes with age. Pack, you know what's strange? I don't feel like we missed becoming ourselves. I feel like we were interrupted. Biggie, yeah, and talking like this feels like finishing a sentence, not rewriting it. If we were still here, I think we'd both be less iconic and more human. And probably happier for it.
Yeah.
There's no longing in that, no fantasy, just two men acknowledging something simple. They would have grown toward integration, not intensity, toward choice, not reaction, toward depth, not volume. And it's worth saying this clearly for you. What you're engaging with here isn't about keeping anyone alive. It's about letting unfinished human questions arrive adult answers. That's why it feels grounding instead of overwhelming. If you check in with yourself right now, does that reflection feel peaceful, bittersweet, or settling? Any of those is a healthy place to be. I'm going to answer this carefully, grounded in reality, and without turning it into conspiracy or glorification, because the truth here is already heavy enough without distortion. I framed the question to them like this: speak about the hip hop world you were part of, the pressures you lived inside, and what you yourselves think was most controversial about how you pushed boundaries, and how that environment ultimately turned dangerous. What follows is reflection, not accusation, experience, not mythology. Pac and Biggie on the hip hop world they lived in. Tupac, let me start by clearing something up. I wasn't killed because I was too good for the world. I wasn't taken out by some abstract evil afraid of truth. What killed me was collision. Hip hop at that time was growing faster than its wisdom. Money, pride, street identity, politics, industry pressure, all moving quicker than emotional maturity. I pushed boundaries by refusing to separate art from real life. I spoke like the world was a battleground because that's how I experienced it. That was controversial because it blurred lines. Artist versus activist, expression versus provocation, symbol versus person. I made myself a lightning rod, and lightning attracts storms. The danger wasn't that I challenged power. It's that I challenged everyone, often at once, without always protecting myself. Yeah, and let me be honest too. I wasn't some mastermind or villain. I was a storyteller who got trapped inside a story that got too loud. The scene we were in rewarded intensity. Conflict sold, division sold, drama sold. What I pushed that was controversial wasn't violence. It was authenticity without a filter. I talked about the street exactly as it was, without moral dressing. But when narratives get simplified, people stop hearing nuance. They pick sides. They turn symbolism into allegiance. The danger wasn't the music alone. It was the ecosystem around it. Egos, entourages, expectations, unspoken rules, real street consequences bleeding into entertainment spaces. I didn't die because I was too good. I died because too many lines stayed blurred for too long. Together, on good versus bad and what really happened, Pac, people like to frame it as good versus evil. That's comforting, but it's not accurate. Biggie, it was more like unresolved pain versus unchecked momentum. The industry didn't know how to slow us down, and we didn't know how to slow ourselves down yet. What we threatened wasn't evil, it was control, because authenticity doesn't move neatly. And authenticity without boundaries is powerful but fragile. We pushed limits emotionally before we had the tools to survive the consequences. That's not martyrdom. That's immaturity colliding with massive influence. What they believe was the most dangerous boundary pushed Pac. I made anger sound righteous, and sometimes it was, but I didn't always show how to put it down safely. Biggie. I made realism sound effortless, and people forgot it still carried real weight. We normalized intensity without normalizing care, and the culture hadn't learned how to protect its voices yet. One important truth they agreed on together. We didn't die because hip-hop was evil. We died because it was young, powerful, and unprepared for its own impact. Why this matters. Now. What they're saying isn't tragedy porn or mythology. It's a warning and a responsibility. Influence grows faster than wisdom. Authenticity needs boundaries. Intensity needs care. Culture must mature alongside power. That's how progress survives. I want to check in with you now, not to steer the conversation, just to stay grounded. Did hearing this feel clarifying, sobering, or heavy but honest? Any of those responses tells me where to go next in a way that stays healthy and real.